Welcome to Mythic Mundi. We journey into the fog of history, exploring the strange, the unexplained, and the forgotten. We seek to understand the moments when the world we think we know simply stops making sense. Today, we travel back to a time of superstition, fear, and fervent belief. A time when an entire city was gripped by an unseen force, compelling them to move, to writhe, and to dance until they could dance no more. This is the story of Strasbourg, 1518. This is the mystery of the dancing plague.
The year is 1518. The city of Strasbourg, nestled in the Alsace region, is a prosperous but troubled place. It is a city perched on the edge, politically, religiously, and economically. Famine has ravaged the surrounding lands. New diseases are whispered about in taverns, and the spiritual certainties of the past are beginning to crack. The air is thick with anxiety, a dry tinder waiting for a spark. That spark came not in the form of an invading army or a political decree. It came in the form of a single, ordinary woman. Her name was Frau Troffea. In the suffocating heat of mid-July, Frau Troffea stepped out of her modest home and onto the narrow cobblestone street. She did not walk to the market. She did not go to visit a neighbor. She began to dance. There was no music. There was no festival. This was not a dance of joy. Eyewitness accounts, which were recorded by the shocked city authorities, describe her movements as convulsive, frantic. Her limbs thrashed, her body twisted. Her face was a mask of something not of this world. Her husband, confused and then angered, pleaded with her to stop. He reportedly begged, then commanded, but she could not. It was as if she were a puppet, her strings pulled by an invisible master. For an entire day, she danced. As dusk fell, her body, pushed beyond its limits, finally collapsed from sheer, agonizing exhaustion. Her feet were raw, swollen, and bleeding, but the respite was brief. After a few short hours of fitful unconsciousness, she rose again, and the dance resumed. This was not a choice. This was an affliction. Frau Troffea danced uncontrollably for nearly 6 days. The spectacle was terrifying. Neighbors and passers-by gathered, watching with a mixture of pity, fear, and morbid curiosity. This was not madness as they knew it. This was something else. And then, the most terrifying aspect of the phenomenon revealed itself. It was contagious. Not contagious like a common cold, transmitted by a cough or a touch. It was a contagion of the mind, a visual plague. One by one, then in small clusters, others who watched her joined her. A neighbor, worn down by the sight, began to twitch. A passing merchant suddenly threw down his wares and began to spin. A group of children, perhaps mimicking, were suddenly trapped in the same frantic rhythm. Within a week, more than 30 people were gripped by the same uncontrollable compulsion. The streets of Strasbourg were no longer a place of commerce. They were a theater for a collective nightmare. The city authorities were paralyzed. Strasbourg was a well-ordered city, proud of its cathedrals and its commerce. This was chaos. This was madness. They summoned the city's physicians. The learned men, faced with dozens of citizens jerking and spinning in the streets, consulted their ancient texts. They observed the dancers, the sweat, the labored breathing, the red, flushed faces, Their diagnosis, based on the prevailing medical theory of the time, was hot blood. They concluded that the dancers were suffering from a natural imbalance, an excess of overheated blood in their systems. The cure, they reasoned, was logical. The affliction must be expelled. The dancers must dance it out. This decision, born from the best medical knowledge they possessed, would prove to be catastrophically wrong. Believing they were acting on sound advice, the city council took action. They did not try to restrain the dancers. They did not offer them rest, water, or a place of quiet. Instead, they actively encouraged them. The city guilds were ordered to clear out their halls, turning them into temporary echoing dance floors. They went further. A large wooden stage was constructed in the middle of the city's grain market, a public space for this public cure. To ensure the cure was effective, the council did the one thing that seems, to our modern minds, the most baffling of all. They hired musicians. Dozens of pipers, drummers, and fiddlers were brought in to provide a constant driving beat. They were paid to play, day and night, to help the afflicted, to keep the rhythm going, to force the hot blood out of their systems. Imagine the scene: a medieval city square transformed into a grotesque, open-air asylum. On the stage, the original dancers, their bodies already weakening, were joined by a fresh wave of the afflicted. And in the square, the council hired healthy, able-bodied men, not as guards, but as motivators. Their job was to dance alongside the sick, to hold them up when they faltered, to ensure the relentless motion never, ever stopped. This was not a carnival. It was a nightmare orchestrated by the state. The music was loud, the shouting was constant, and the dancing was endless. But the cure was not working. The plague was accelerating. The constant music, the sight of the writhing bodies, the sheer spectacle of it all seemed to only draw more people in. The mania spread from dozens to scores and then to hundreds. By the time the plague peaked in August, just a few weeks after Frau Troffea first stepped into the street, it is believed that as many as 400 citizens of Strasbourg were dancing. The city had become a theater of the absurd, but the consequences were horrifyingly real. The human body is not designed for such sustained, high-impact torment. People danced on feet that were bruised, bloodied, and broken. They danced through agonizing muscle cramps and blinding dehydration. And then they began to die. City chronicles, written by sober-minded officials, are grim. They state plainly that the plague claimed victims. They speak of dancers collapsing in the streets. They describe men and women, their bodies pushed beyond all human limits, suffering strokes, heart attacks, or simply dying from complete and total exhaustion. The musicians played on. The healthy dancers held them up, and the plague continued. The city's cure had become a state-sponsored execution. The authorities, in their panic, had turned a crisis into a catastrophe. They watched, helpless, as their city was consumed by a frenzy they had actively fueled. The stage they had built became a death trap. The music they had hired became a funeral dirge. And still no one knew why. What force could compel hundreds of people to dance themselves to death? In their desperation, with their medical cure failing so spectacularly, the city leaders turned their eyes from the body to the soul.
The first cure had failed.
the hot blood theory had only fanned the flames of the crisis. The city council and the local clergy, watching their citizens die in the streets, were forced into a terrifying pivot. If this was not a natural sickness, it must be supernatural. This, they concluded, was not a medical problem, it was a spiritual one. This was the wrath of God, or perhaps the work of a powerful saint they had offended. The Council of Strasbourg, in a desperate reversal, banned the very cure they had promoted. The stage in the market was torn down, the musicians were sent home, all public dancing and music were strictly forbidden. A new diagnosis required a new prescription. The cure was no longer to be found in medicine, but in penitence. The authorities ordered a period of public prayer and fasting. They cracked down on what they saw as the city's moral failings. Gambling dens were raided, sinners were forced to atone. They believed to heal the city, they first had to heal its soul. But the core dancers, those locked in the deepest throes of the mania, were still moving. And so a new plan was formed. The remaining dancers, those locked in the deepest throes of the mania, were to be taken on a pilgrimage. They were gathered, loaded onto wagons, and taken on an arduous journey to a shrine nestled in the nearby Vosges Mountains. Their destination was the mountaintop shrine of Saint Vitus. This was no random choice. In the convoluted logic of medieval superstition, Saint Vitus was the patron saint invoked against uncontrolled dancing and epilepsy. It was believed he had the power to inflict this very curse, and therefore only he had the power to take it away. The dancers, many of them half dead, were brought before his statue. They were given small crosses and red shoes, which were blessed by the priests. Masses were held, rituals were performed, and then something remarkable happened. Slowly, one by one, the dancing stopped. The chronicles report that within a few weeks of the pilgrimage, the plague had subsided. The city of Strasbourg, exhausted and traumatized, took a collective breath. But the question remained, and it echoes down through the centuries. What was it that stopped, and why did it stop? Did the rituals at the shrine of Saint Vitus actually work? Was it a miracle? Or was it simply that the combination of exhaustion, the shock of the journey, and the powerful collective belief in the new cure finally broke the fever of the mind? The event ended. The mystery had just begun. For 500 years, we have been trying to answer the question, what truly happened in Strasbourg? Modern science and history have proposed 3 primary theories. Each attempts to shine a light on the madness, and each in its own way is both compelling and incomplete. The first and most famous is the physical theory, ergot poisoning. This is the bad bread hypothesis. Ergot is a mold, a fungus, that grows on damp rye, which was the staple food for the poor of Strasbourg. This fungus is toxic. In fact, it is the raw, natural source from which LSD was first synthesized. When ingested, ergot can cause a condition known as ergotism, or St. Anthony's fire. The symptoms are horrific: gangrene, seizures, tremors, and powerful, terrifying hallucinations. At first glance, this theory seems perfect. A whole city eating from the same poisoned grain supply could certainly experience a mass poisoning. The convulsions could be mistaken for dancing. But there are problems, deep problems. First, ergotism is a sickness. It's debilitating. People who are hallucinating and suffering from gangrene are typically bedridden. They are not, as a rule, capable of dancing for 6 straight days. The sheer physical stamina of the Strasbourg dancers defies the symptoms of ergot poisoning. Second, the numbers. The plague affected around 400 people, but Strasbourg was a city of thousands. Why did it only affect this specific group? Why did it not affect everyone in the households that shared the same bread? And most importantly, this theory fails to explain the core mystery, the contagion. The plague spread by sight. Healthy people saw the dancers and became dancers. A chemical in bread cannot explain this. This leads us to our second and more complex supernatural theory. To be clear, this is not about our belief in the supernatural, but their belief. To the people of 1518, the world was alive with invisible forces. Curses were real. Demonic possession was a documented fact. The wrath of God was a physical, tangible force. In this worldview, seeing a woman like Frau Troffea seemingly possessed was not a metaphor. It was a terrifying reality. This theory suggests the dancers believed they were cursed, perhaps by Saint Vitus himself. The dance was the physical manifestation of that divine curse. They danced because they had to. It was a form of possession, and it only stopped when they believed a higher power, through the pilgrimage and the priests, had lifted the curse. This theory perfectly explains why the cure of Saint Vitus worked. It wasn't the rituals themselves, but the collective faith in them that broke the spell. It explains the transmission. To see the curse in action was to become vulnerable to it yourself. While we cannot prove this, we cannot ignore it. To understand the plague, we must understand the mind of 1518. This brings us to our third and most accepted modern explanation, the one that ties the body and the mind together. This is the psychological theory, mass psychogenic illness. This is what we used to call mass hysteria. It is a phenomenon where a group of people under extreme and sustained psychological stress begin to exhibit real physical symptoms with no identifiable physical cause. It is, in effect, a collective nervous breakdown, a social contagion. Now, let's look at Strasbourg in 1518 again. We mentioned the anxiety. Let's be specific. This was a city on the brink. Famine. The years leading up to 1518 were marked by brutal winters and failed harvests. The people, especially the poor, were starving. Disease, smallpox, leprosy, and the terrifying new pox, or syphilis, were rampant. Death was a constant, visible neighbor. Poverty, an enormous, impoverished class lived in squalor, while a small group of wealthy guilds and clergy controlled everything. The social tension was explosive. Fear, on top of all this, a deep spiritual terror, a belief that the end of the world was near and that every hardship was a sign of God's displeasure. The people of Strasbourg were living in an unendurable pressure cooker of stress, and the human mind, well, it can only take so much. In this context, Frau Troffea's dance was not the cause of the plague, it was the trigger. She was the first crack in the dam. The dance, in this theory, was a form of dissociation, a trance-like state. It was the only way for their minds to escape a reality that was too horrible to bear. The dance was a symptom of the city's collective trauma. It spread by sight because these people were already so stressed, so suggestible, so desperate for any kind of release that seeing one person break gave them permission to break too. The stage, the music, the hired dancers, the city council's cure was like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. They accidentally created the perfect amplifying echo chamber for the hysteria. The cure of Saint Vitus worked in this model because it was a de-escalation. It removed the dancers from the charged environment, took them to a quiet, holy place, and gave them a powerful new narrative. You are not cursed, you are being healed. This theory is the most compelling. It doesn't require us to believe in poisons that make you dance, nor in saints inflicting curses. It only requires us to believe in one well-documented fact, that the human mind, under extreme pressure, can and will break in extraordinary ways. The sickness was not in their bread or in their stars, it was in their society.
The dancing stopped. The music faded. The citizens of Strasbourg, traumatized and bewildered, began the long process of rebuilding their lives. But the event was not forgotten. It was etched into the city's memory. The dancing plague of 1518 was documented, not as folklore, but as a real, terrifying historical event. It was recorded by the physicians who tried to cure it, the clergy who tried to pray it away, and the city chroniclers who simply tried to make sense of it. For them, it was a warning from God, a lesson in piety. For us, it is a window, a strange, distorted window into the human psyche. The plague of 1518 was the most famous, but it was not unique. Smaller dancing manias had been reported in Europe for centuries before, and a few would happen after. But as the Middle Ages gave way to the Renaissance and then to the Enlightenment, the phenomenon faded. As our belief in curses and divine wrath receded, replaced by reason and science, these mass psychological breaks seemed to vanish with them. The world, it seemed, had become more rational. But has it? Or have the expressions of our collective anxiety simply changed? This is the legacy of the dancing plague. It serves as a powerful, disturbing mirror. We look at the people of Strasbourg dancing uncontrollably in the streets, and we may feel a sense of superiority. We are modern. We are scientific. We are rational. We would never be so easily swayed. But are we sure? The human condition hasn't changed. We are still vulnerable to stress, fear, and social pressure. The pressure cooker of 1518, poverty, disease, inequality, and overwhelming anxiety is not a foreign concept. We no longer have mass dances, but what about mass panics? What about the financial bubbles where collective belief drives the price of an asset to impossible heights? Until one day the spell breaks and the market collapses. What about the spread of viral misinformation, where a compelling, emotional but false story can infect millions of minds in a matter of hours, far faster than any medieval plague? What about the sudden intense social manias that can grip online communities, leading to real-world consequences, where groups of people feeding off each other's certainty become convinced of a reality that exists only within their echo chamber? The technology has changed, but the psychology is the same. We are, all of us, susceptible to social contagion. We are all, in our own way, capable of being caught up in a dance we don't understand, our movements dictated by the crowd. The dancing plague of 1518 is not just a historical curiosity, it is a cautionary tale. It teaches us that when a society is under extreme stress, when people feel powerless, and when their anxieties have no rational outlet, the human mind will find an outlet. And it is often strange, irrational, and self-destructive. It teaches us that a cure born from panic can be far more deadly than the disease. And it reminds us, most of all, that our shared reality is more fragile than we think. It is built on a collective trust, a shared understanding. And when that trust breaks, when the stress becomes too great, the dancing can begin again. The stage in Strasbourg is gone. The musicians are silent. But the need to understand our own minds and the strange, powerful forces that move us is more urgent than ever. What do you think? What mysterious event, person, or myth do you think shaped our world? We want to know what mysteries you'd like us to explore next. Let us know in the comments below. And if you wish to journey with us again into the unknown, please remember to like this video, subscribe to Mythic Mundi, and comment with your thoughts. Your support helps us keep the search for answers alive. Thank you for watching.